In conversation with Judith Pratt. Judith Pratt, varied experiences, actor, director, professor, fundraiser, and freelance writer, inspire her novels, stories, and plays. She began as a playwright, then a story appeared that would not fit on a stage, so she wrote a novel and two more. Published The Dry Country, CG, Magic, The Skill, all on Amazon. Short stories and essays follow soon after. They appear online and in print, including in Last Stanza, The Gateway Review, Fifth Die Magazine, Fiction Junkies, Axe Fire, Synchronicity Magazines, and Write It Sideway. In 2019, a play, Maze, was selected for the Louisiana State University Fine Art Prize. A play, Losing It, was published in Beck's 10-minute plays of 2020. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to have on the show today Judith Pratt and Cindy Breck co-hosting me in the conversation. How are you doing, Judith?
I am doing well. Um, oh, the snow has stopped, so I'm even doing better.
That's great. It's nice to have you.
That's such a
Here,
nice
here in
one, really.
upstate New York, it snows a lot.
Oh, the snow has stopped. I'm feeling better. Looks like you don't like too much cold.
Summer, so I haven't experienced winter there.
Thank you so much. That's quite amazing. So, Judith, I need to first say that I am impressed reading through the description page of your novel, The Skill, on Amazon, and I would like you to tell us about how the book came to be. What inspired you to write The Skill?
I never quite know where stories come from,
Yeah.
but I do know that that the main place in the skill, the house and the woods around it, were inspired by my great grandmother's house
Mm.
in Cohasset, Massachusetts.
Well,
Cohasset, Massachusetts is on what they call the South Shore of Boston. So
mm,
Boston is in a giant harbor, and so there's the North Shore and the South Shore. So it's an oceanside town.
mm,
And it was my total favorite place growing up. We would visit my grandmother and go swimming in the ocean.
yeah.
And so when the story kind of wandered into my head, that was where I set it. But then I realized that it wouldn't work in Massachusetts, so I put it in Maine because it's close enough.
Mhm.
Um, but other than that, my stories tend to be about ordinary people suddenly confronted with something magic.
Wow.
So in this case, ordinary people confronted with, oh, I can make trees grow, or oh, I can calm the ocean.
The skill. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so how long have you been a playwright and how did you actually begin that? I know there's a definite strong correlation, but I just want to get some ba bases here.
I literally had to look it up, but I do know how I became a playwright.
Wow.
Um, I, as I was telling Cindy, I trained as an actor, and way back in the 90s, um, a man named Arthur Lithgow came to Ithaca because his daughter lived here and started a playwriting group, which was all men. And he had the really good idea to get a collection of actors to read the scripts so the playwrights could hear them. So I was one of those actors. Oh, well, we should write plays.
Wow.
You know, I can't, I think it's chorus line. There's a song, I Can Do That. And that was basically, I saw it saying, I can do that. And I wrote a play called Chimera.
Wow.
And then I looked at it and I said, well, I should produce it. I know how to do that. So I self produced it. And
Wow.
that was the beginning. fibromyalgia, stuff like that.
Mm.
So, and but I've really been concentrating more on novels and stories.
That's interesting to know, really. I love your take on that. I love the background into your making as a playwright and how you began. That's quite beautiful to know. That's quite amazing. And I'm curious as to how many years that has been by now.
Uh, I I know that Chimera, my first play, I self-produced it in '96, so I
Wow.
probably wrote it in the early '90s,
It's many years ago.
um, a long time ago.
Wow.
First novel, because I got the ideas just wander in here. And I had this idea, and I thought, this is not going to fit on a stage.
Hmm.
Well, I guess it's writing novels and short stories and essays and stuff like that.
That's amazing, really. That's very great. Thank you. Now let's go back to the skill, your book, The Skill. For the sake of readers who haven't read it yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect in terms of themes and subject lines picking up The Skill? And if you have a copy there, I'd like you to show to the camera, just so we see what it looks like.
I really had to think about that. Where did I put notes? Um, because, the story shows up and I write it, and only then do I sort of realize what I've done.
Yeah?
Um, I think in the case of the skill, in terms of theme, it's two fairly young women who discover they have these magical talents.
Hmm.
But in terms of theme,
Yeah?
um, as young women, we have to discover what our talents are, what we really can do, and what we want to do. But sometimes what we think we want to do, or we think who we are,
Yeah?
isn't right. And so in this case, they just sort of thought they were ordinary people, and then they have magic skills.
Hmm.
And they're like, whoa, where'd this come from? But certainly when I look back on my own career, I kept doing different things, sort of, testing it out, and have had different careers. But writing is absolutely what I was meant to do. Took
Wow.
me a while to figure it out.
I
Wow.
think it takes all of us a little while to figure out where our best fit in our niches in life and stuff like that. Um, I read in your bio that you are a professor. Could you tell us a little bit about your profession and as how being a professor, how that impacted your writing?
Well, I'm not a professor anymore. Um, I probably should rewrite my bio. But I came to Ithaca because I got a job teaching theater at Ithaca College, Ithaca near Cornell University. So it's a
Wow.
university town. And I was told when I moved here that the guy who reads your meter probably has a PhD. That's the kind of town it is. Everybody's, you know, somehow connected with one of the schools.
Yeah.
Um, and I taught there for 7 years and didn't get tenure. And when I think about it, I think there was a guy there who didn't like me and
Yeah.
had a lot of power. But I kept teaching. I taught classes locally,
Wow.
um, just pick things up. And
Hmm.
I taught at a place called Wells College,
Mm.
which is, oh, 20 miles away, little school. At acting, I taught voice and movement for the act. You wear a mask, and then you have to become who the mask says you are physically. But I also taught theater history. So I was sort of going off in two directions,
Hmm.
Wow.
and kind of wore myself out. But my dissertation was on theater history. So yeah, I have a PhD, and I'm totally not impressed because I live in a town where everybody's got one. So
How did that impact your writing just a little bit more?
Wow.
Well, what's interesting is that when I didn't get tenure, I knowing how to find a job, I found jobs writing because I'd written a dissertation and it wasn't hard. You know, some people are like, oh, this is so hard. And I was just like, writing, what? Writing's easy. So at that point, I realized I could sell it.
Mhm.
Uh, wrote fundraising materials for Cornell University and wrote theater reviews for the local paper,
Wow.
among other things. So there I was writing, you know, and so when I had an idea for a story, I'd already been writing stuff, so I could write.
And then you got the skill, right?
Though, yeah, well, the first one was what was the first one? The Dry Country. That was the
Oh,
first novel,
wow.
and I don't know where that came from.
Wow.
Interesting titles.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
the Dry Country was a place that I made up.
That's impressive to know, really. I mean, it's amazing. I love your answers to these questions, really. It's amazing how all of it unfolds. And I love your answer to the professor and teaching questions. Quite great. Now, I personally, I've not written a novel yet. I've not written any full-length novel or short story, but I'm always fascinated by how someone like you, writers like you, novelists like you, would sit down and craft long sentences and bring words together in a way that sentence come together to make paragraph, and paragraph come together to make pages, and pages come together to make chapters, and on it keep going to make an eventual great novel. And this always leave me thinking, how exactly do these people sit down and craft these long sentences, this long paragraph, in a way that it keeps transitioning in a beautiful manner without anything missing out? I think it's a whole lot of talent, really, and skill. But then, as far as writing is concerned, I'd like to ask you, how exactly do you get the inspirations and ideas to write these books? Where did they come from? I'm curious.
I wish I knew because I'm sort of in a dry spell. Let me see where I'm thinking about the skill. It may really have come how much I loved visiting my grandmother,
Oh, wow.
and it's her. Actually, my this is quite a story. So this is Massachusetts, and my grandmother lived on Stevens Lane.
Yeah.
My middle name is Stevens, named for Stevens Lane. It was Stevens Lane because my great grandfather was Stevens, and he built a
Oh,
big house there, which is the house in the Skill. And then when my grandmother got married, she built a house across the street. It's my total favorite place in the whole world. You know, you could explore the woods, you could go to the beach. So from somewhere, I don't know where this stuff comes from, but I just needed to write a story about that place. And and I really, as a kid, I really thought those woods were magic. I was a little scared of them. Whoa, who lives there? Um, so and when I was looking at your questions, I realized something. Even when I was probably a young teenager, I would make up stories in my head. Most of them are not something I would ever want to write down.
mm,
But as you say, it's a talent. You have it. You you're born with it. It's like my husband, who is a musician.
yeah.
Now he's always saying, "Oh, listen to that! Listen to what the clarinet is doing in that piece of music." And I'm going, "Clarinet? There's a clarinet."
That's what my daughter will be doing. I
Oh,
don't know instruments
I'm a
worth
total,
anything.
I'm a total idiot about music.
Same here.
But writing, whatever. Tell me something to write, I'll write it.
It's
Oh my.
neat that you say that your grandmother was your inspiration for the skill. I mean, it just kind of resonates deep with me. Um, Apart from that, you've got some other works I'm sure that you're planning on authoring or currently working on.
I've got a short novel I'm working on, and it refuses to get longer.
Oh,
And it is, I don't know, I've had my writers group look at it, and it's like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm going, it isn't right. It isn't right. So it's kind of torturing me. So it's in the works. And I haven't really found a story to write lately. I'm writing essays. I'm writing
yeah,
sort of memoir essays right now.
that's great. That's beautiful. That sounds like you've got a lot in going. I hope you find some times to sleep.
Well, I'm retired. I mean, a lot of this writing sort of happened when I retired from my writing job at Cornell. Um, and, I was writing at Cornell. It's like, what do I write now? I have to write something. So, so being
Oh my
retired, I have
goodness.
time.
That's so fun, really, Judith. I love your answers to these questions. They're quite great, quite amazing, quite beautiful. Love them. Thank you so much for the answers. Yeah, and also I'd like to ask you, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? And I know that with different authors, it varies, especially if you're writing in different genre. For a poet, it differs. For a children's literature writer, it differs. For a memoir writer and for a fiction writer, writing and publishing means a different thing to them, yeah? But then I wanted to ask you, are there any challenges you've encountered in the process of writing your book and also ever since it got published?
The writing is fun.
Yeah.
The publishing and marketing isn't.
No.
And what is really interesting is that in some of my writing jobs, I was actually kind of marketing.
Mm.
For Cornell, I was writing, oddly enough, about Cornell athletics, which is pretty funny since I'm not an athlete. But you know it's going somewhere. You're writing something that somebody wants. But when you're doing your own stuff, there's this getting it published,
Yeah.
and I literally collect publishing opportunities
Oh,
for stories and essays. So it's another job. It's reading. You learn where all the lists are of places that want something, and you stare at them and you say, yes, I do have a story that will fit. I do have an essay that will fit. I don't have a story that will fit. And then for novels, finding a publisher. I mean, I just self-published my first novel. I
oh,
sent it to a bunch of agents and no nibbles, and I wanted it out there. So I
oh.
self-published it. Um, so that's like a whole other job as a writer, is figuring out how to sell your stuff.
Mm.
It's not an easy job.
Ugh. I mean, there's a local bookstore where I want to do a reading of the skill.
Yeah.
And the last time I did a reading there, it was just talk to them, do a reading. Now they have 4 pages to fill out
Wow.
about doing the reading, and I can't do it until March. So if you want to be a writer out there, you've got this whole other job of selling your work.
Yeah, and managing the behind the scenes aspects of it is you need to hire an assistant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then
I
you
would
have
love
more to
to
do that.
hire somebody to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Judith, I want to know, sometimes I get these thoughts that run through my head, but this is one that I think is really, it's just open-ended, but is there anything that you personally would like to share about your book to the viewers here that we've not mentioned in this interview?
Let's see. So I told you where I got the idea from, sort of, and that it's based on my favorite place in the world,
Mhm.
Massachusetts. And okay, this is a long story. When I got out of college, I was like, I am so tired of reading important books, fantasy and science fiction for the rest of my life. Um, and I read a lot of it. And I'm no longer interested in what they call epic fantasy with, you know, dragons and elves. And
Yeah.
I mean, Tolkien is great. And after that, eh. Um, so the style that I write in is ordinary people
Wow.
faced with extraordinary experiences.
Oh, interesting.
And that's very much all of my books.
Wow.
And in the skill is this extraordinary talent
Wow.
that these people discover and don't know what to do with. Um, but I'm not sure where the second character came from. The one who, there's two characters. There's the one who's in my grandmother's house visiting her
Mm.
great aunt, and there's one who lives on an island off the coast of Maine with a
Wow.
fishing family. And they want her to stay because the whole family can manage the ocean. So if they didn't want to do that, she wants to have her own life. And she goes over to the mainland and has her own life.
Mm.
Um, and actually falls in love with a woman, much to her shock,
Wow.
and doesn't want to tell anybody that she has this skill because they'll all think she's weird. Um, but has to use it to save her lover's brother.
Mm.
So that's a whole other part of the story.
Wow.
And then the two women get together. Um, well, it's really complicated, but anyway, they aren't friends to start with. It's sort of a difficult relationship. So that's more of the skill.
So you have a complicated book there, magical realism kind of thing that you're dealing with.
Lot of jam.
Yeah. Is magical realism okay if you're not talking about all those South American writers who do it?
Yeah.
I don't know because that I think that's what I write, which is, it isn't straight fantasy, it's ordinary people, but they're all going, where did this talent come from?
I think that realism brings a lot into the fantasy world. It anchors you and it draws you in that much deeper when there's a component of it that seems plausible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear, since that's what I write.
I love fantasy too, so.
Yeah, fantasy is one of my favorite genres as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying your take on this so far, really. And before we go, I'd like you to show the book to the camera, one after the other, just so we see what they look like from the skill to the other ones.
We're not out of bookcases, we're out of walls.
Oh, that many books that you have in your house. So, in other words, this would be a treasure hunt, right?
Yes, it would be a treasure. I'm looking at a wall
So,
of
it's a
books.
hunt for the magical realism, right? And not the book, the skill, because you've already got the skill. You just have to find the other ones, right?
Just have to find them, yeah. I mean, you can see behind me, and I'm looking at a wall of books.
Kind of looks
Wow.
like Peter's place, that book.
And
I think you got a
yeah,
lot more than me, actually.
yeah. So I didn't think to show those off, and I
Yeah,
made
no
sure where
problem.
they are.
Where can the readers get a copy of your book?
All of my books are on Amazon. Um, and I also, the publisher sent me a whole box
Wow.
of books. So I have a lot of them and could send people books if they wanted them and could, would be able to sign them.
That's awesome. That's very kind of them.
Wow.
I know. They're in England, so, you
Oh,
know,
Hmm.
nice people.
That's where Peter's
Nice people.
going.
thank
So,
Oh, so Cindy, where are you
oh, in the
based?
United States. Yes.
You are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not too far from you, Ohio.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
I lived in Columbus for a while.
Did you really? I'm above there.
All right.
Oh yeah. Agricultural town.
Yeah. That's where this is another life. That's where I ran a mime company.
A what company?
Remember mime?
Oh,
Mime.
mime. I thought you said mind.
That's quite amazing, really. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Judith Pratt books directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles, on our website, and also on other platforms. I also left link to our social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Judith, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. I must say this is more than awesome. Very great, quite exciting having this conversation with you around your book. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation and wish I could meet you in person, but Zoom is wonderful. And I enjoy doing this and enjoy remember things that I've done that I forget. So thank you both.
Yeah, my
It was our
pleasure.
pleasure.